So I wanted to first point out this article. It's in the Telegraph, and there's a link to it in the description below. And in it, there is discussion about the migration crisis that's happening across the EU at the moment. And I thought it was very, the wording was very important. So I'll read the first paragraph. Turmoil in Europe from the Greek debt crisis and the uncontrolled surge in mass migration from Africa. And that's where I'll stop. Because one of the things that is quite often portrayed as to why anybody who's against migration is they point to the young boy, the Syrian boy that drowned when he was trying to get off a boat. And that was heart-ripping. I can't remember, I think he was 3 years old, and it was just heartbreaking. But they're fleeing war, they're refugees, so they do not come within the definitions. They, as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as most of my colleagues is concerned, they would walk into the country. They're within the definition of the convention. They're fleeing a war-torn area. I mean, you can't get more war-torn than Syria at the moment. So everything I'm about to discuss, and I think everything that the government discusses and everybody else discusses, should not and cannot encapsulate the people that flee in Syria, because we should be setting up something to get these people and bring them to the UK, bring them to any of the European countries. I understand that the United States has only agreed to take 10,000, and that, I think, stinks. But with regards to the migration crisis, as it keeps being referred to as, that isn't a migration crisis of the Syrians, that's Africans, so countries such as Eritrea. All of the people that are coming over to Europe, and there are hundreds of thousands of them, they're breaking into countries, they've gone into Greece, they're dying on ships trying to get over to the mainland Europe so that they can get to a country. And you'll see most of them have an idea of where they want to go. A lot want to go to Germany, a lot want to come to the UK. 60% of them are Muslims. So the first question in regards to Syrian refugees and the economic migrants from Africa, if 60% of them are Muslims, why aren't any of the Gulf states helping? I've put a link below to a news interview that Nigel Farage did, and it's the first question he brought up. Why are we having to take people? Why is the US having to take people when the nearest neighbours and the nearest traditionally and the nearest religiously and the nearest in societal makeup is the Gulf states, so Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai? Why are they taking nobody? Why has Saudi Arabia made it almost impossible for anybody from Syria to go there? All of the African states, they're not jumping on boats going to Dubai, one of the most luxury countries in the world, or Saudi Arabia, a country that has hundreds of billions in profits from its oil. These are rich countries. These are rich countries that were not affected as badly by the economic downturn in 2008. So why are they all coming to the United Kingdom when we are suffering economically, when their nearest neighbours are ignoring them? They don't want anything to do with that. So that's where the anger should be lying, is they're Muslims. These are predominantly Muslim countries. They are near. They're the neighbours. You know, when France was overrun in the Second World War, where did they go? They came to England because we're their neighbour. Why isn't Saudi Arabia doing anything? Why is there a rich king that is worth hundreds of millions of pounds and hundreds of billions of pounds, and he and his rich family have not helped a single refugee from Syria? They aren't helping any of the economic migrants from the African states. Why is it that Europe has to do this? Why is it America is only taking 10 million? You know, the population of the US is 250 to 300 million. Why is it they're taking 10,000 people and we're expected, as a country with 67 million, we're expected to take 20 to 40 million, 40,000 migrants? Why should we be taking any? You know, we're a country that every month we have to borrow money because we don't have sufficient funds in the UK to pay for everything. We've had 5 years of the Tories slashing. I mean, it's been frightening the amount of money that has been cut from UK spending, and still 5 years later, at the end of every month, we have to borrow money. And now, compared to a year ago, we are still borrowing round about the same. It's worked to an extent, but it hasn't worked as much and as quickly as the Tories told us it would do. And now we're seeing a huge influx of more Africans. And if you watch the news, you watch the pictures, these people are all men predominantly. The refugees that are coming over from Syria, lots of them are families. But if you look at the migrants that are in Calais, that are marching into Germany at the moment, that are marching into Austria, they're all men. And they're all saying they've left their families at home and they'll bring them back at a later date. Well, they can't be fleeing from, and I'm not talking about Syrians, they can't be fleeing from a country that is that bad because they've left their families there. They're fleeing for economic reasons, and they want to come here and they want to extract as much cash. That's the whole point of them coming here. If I lived in Eritrea, I would want to come here. But we in this country can't afford it. 5 years' time it might be different. If we listen to George Osborne, in 5 years' time we will start be paying down the debt of the country because we will be in a net positive with the amount of cash that we bring in every month. But as matters stand right now, we don't have this money. So we shouldn't be accepting these migrants. So the next step is to look at what would we do, what should we do? And I don't understand why people are finding it difficult to grasp the Australian point system. It works in Australia. Australia still takes in migrants, but they're migrants that are going to benefit the country. And I heard during the election, oh, well, who's going to pick the fruit? Well, the fact is, there are teenagers in this country that would go do it, but if there was no fruit pickers, then they would go on the point system and we would take in more people that want to come here to pick fruit. That's the whole concept of the Australian point system. We take in who we need. And if we need more care homes, if we need more nurses, then they're going to be up there. If we've got nobody picking the fruit, we need somebody to do it. So the system would be moved and we would bring in more people that want to come and pick fruit. That's how it works. So let's have a look at the Australian system.